A lot of people have known for many years that some of these so-called luxury brands are a bit of a scam, but some recent events have really thrust the gravity of the situation into the public spotlight. And it's both hilarious because of how embarrassing it must be, but also quite sad to see how far they've fallen and some of the terrible practices that they follow. Today I'm going to explain to you what's happened, let you know my thoughts, and hopefully just bring more attention to the situation in hope that they will improve going forward. Let's start with the most recent drama because it sets a good base for the wider scam. Wisdom, who is probably the biggest fashion influencer online at the moment, recently picked up a few items from the Miu Miu store. Picked up is a bit of an understatement. He spent $18,000, which is wild. One of the items in that haul was this $2,800 denim trucker vest. Now, for those unaware, Miu Miu are a subsidiary of Prada. Prada, of course, being one of the biggest quote-unquote luxury fashion brands out there. Miu Miu is a sort of more rebellious and experimental line of their clothing. But they still make all the same claims as their parent company, proudly advertising how their products are made in Italy. Well, as Wisdom prepared to show off his brand new Miu Miu pickups on TikTok, he found that one of the buttons on his $2,800 denim vest just dropped off. He describes it as instantly falling off, suggesting there was no force or foul play involved. Then, to make matters worse, a $2,200 sweater that he purchased in the same haul also had issues. The pulley on the zipper just dropped off when he tried it on and zipped it up. What really stood out to me when watching was how genuinely disappointed he was. He didn't seem to want to make the video, which tells me his reaction was genuine. And secondly, I was struck by just how trash looking the hardware on those Miu Miu pieces were. The button that fell off the denim vest is clearly some cheap, unbranded, Fugazi gold coloured rubbish. And I might be wrong, but the zipper looks mostly the same, but is silver instead. It doesn't even seem to be YKK, which you would hope to be a minimum at that price point. And thirdly, of course, just the shockingly poor craftsmanship and quality control of their pieces. Now, for Miu Miu, this was obviously a PR nightmare, given Wisdom has almost 14 million followers. He's extremely influential and loves his luxury clothes, so for him to call them out is a big deal. And they've quickly gained the nickname Timu, which is absolutely legendary. Anyway, they quickly sent him out some replacements, and the hilarious and sad thing is, the exact same thing happened again. This time, Wisdom recorded himself unboxing both pieces from the start, and the build-up just makes it even better. He talks about how he really likes the pieces, and there's no way it would happen again. The sweater just about makes the pass, although it does look like he's baby handling the zipper. But then he unbuttons the denim vest, and wouldn't you know it, one of the buttons drops off again in just normal use. You'd think the team at Miu Miu might at least ensure the replacement vest they've sent out to him was stress tested first, even if they reinforced the buttons just for the sake of their reputation, because they must have known he was going to do a follow-up video. But I mean, are we even shocked at this point? These so-called luxury brands have been ripping people off for years and years with very little care and accountability. Which leads me on to the next point, which demonstrates just how much worse this situation actually is. Has anyone else noticed that so many of their clothes seem to be made in Italy these days? I'm not saying that's a bad thing, by the way. Made in Italy means you're getting something quality and well made, right? Well, yes, sometimes, but as it turns out, a lot of the time, that isn't really the case. Loro Piana are the latest luxury Italian brand who have been caught running what are effectively sweatshops in Italy. Other brands who are also wrapped up in similar scandals are Valentino, Dior, Armani. Loro Piana were caught having their cashmere pieces, some of which retail for up to $40,000, yes, you heard that right, being made by illegal immigrants in their workshops in Milan. One of the workers was reportedly unpaid and sustained injuries during their employment, which was eventually brought to the attention of the police. And this is how Loro Piana ended up in judicial administration and put under investigation. Apparently, Loro Piana blamed the subcontractors they were using and claimed they were unaware of the workshop conditions. But in my opinion, when you're charging $40,000 for a single coat, you should absolutely know the condition of all of your workers at all times. In fact, even if it was a $4 coat, you should ensure your workers are safe and fairly paid no matter what. Keep in mind, Loro Piana's headquarters is in Milan, and many of these workshops were also in Milan, not some far-off country where it might be difficult for them to monitor. They literally could have taken a drive down to have a look at how their clothes were being made. They have zero excuses. Of course, I'm not saying Loro Piana quality is bad, by the way. I don't own any of their pieces, but I'm sure they're great. And there's probably numerous workshops and factories of theirs that are being legitimately run. But believe it or not, the Made in Italy scandal goes even deeper. And this harks back to the other brands I mentioned earlier, such as Armani and Dior. An investigation by the Italian police revealed that they were having their bags made by Chinese subcontractors for as little as 53 euros, and then selling them on for 2,000 euros or more. Going on their websites today, you can see that same famous tagline, Made in Italy, next to most of their bags. But how do they get away with this if they're actually made abroad, somewhere like China? Istok Pavlovich did an excellent breakdown of this, which I'll link in the description. It boils down to Article 60 in EU law that says where more than one country is involved in the production of an item, such as a bag, its origin of production will be deemed the last place where a substantial transformation has taken place. Well, so-called luxury brands like Armani and Dior have realised that they can get 95% of their bags made abroad for substantially cheaper, then imported to Italy to put the final touch on, something like sewing a zipper in. And now, according to EU law, that bag has been made in Italy. Now, we're not saying that things made in China or other countries are automatically bad quality. If anything, the fact that they're able to create these items for so much cheaper and people are generally happy with them shows how skilled they are. But the perception is, of course, that made in Italy must mean it's handcrafted by Italian artisans, which demands that higher price tag. While that might sometimes be true, it's increasingly under threat due to the scammy practices of luxury fashion brands. They're watering down the meaning of made in Italy. In Miu Miu's case though, it was actually the finishing touches of the buttons and zippers that were presumably done in Italy that failed, which further pushes the narrative that some of these luxury brands are so devoid of care and quality these days. They're constantly taking shortcuts and relying on the history behind their name to rip customers off, and it's beginning to show. It does make you wonder how deep this goes when you see made in France, made in Germany, or even made in Great Britain, even though we're not in the EU anymore. So if these luxury brands aren't actually selling us luxury goods, what's the alternative? Well, in my opinion, there's two obvious routes to take. Firstly is to go vintage, which just has so many benefits. The big one, which is relevant to this, is that vintage items which say made in Italy, for example, probably actually were made in Italy. And the difference in quality between something vintage and something modern is often immediately noticeable. They used to use way less synthetics and things were actually made to last, and that becomes extremely obvious when you see 50-plus-year-old pieces still going strong today. In addition to this, vintage is often way cheaper and more sustainable. The other route, which has been obvious to many people for years and years, is to look for Japanese-made clothes. I may be wrong, but I don't believe there's been any made in Japan clothing scandals just yet. When something says it's made in Japan, it actually is. And those who have bought Japanese-made clothing can vouch for the immense quality of the materials and construction. There's something about Japanese culture which keeps them honest with their manufacturing practices. They seem to take pride in putting in the extra effort to make their pieces better than the rest. It is reflective in their prices, which are often quite steep, but they're almost always worth it. Last thing I would say to keep an eye out for when you're shopping for luxury items is specific names. For example, the tanneries where their leather comes from, or the factory where their denim is produced. Good brands want you to know the quality of their pieces and where they've sourced their materials. You'll notice how pretty much none of these luxury brands tell you where the leather for their bags and shoes comes from, which really does speak for itself. So there's the latest drama in the chronically online fashion world. I know a lot of people dislike influencers, but I think it's really great that Wisdom called out Miu Miu and brought this to the attention of so many people. I'd love to know what you guys think of all of this. Do let me know down in the comments. But anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ra.